G'day everyone, welcome to another episode of Wine Back Wednesday and Happy New Year. Here's to a great 2026. But in saying that, I'd like to mention at this time that our thoughts and prayers go out to a number of the state of Victoria in particular, to the thousands of people who've been impacted by the tragic fires that have gone through. A number of people have lost houses, and unfortunately a lot of our fellow winemakers in Victoria have lost their vineyards and their wineries over the last couple of days. So it's not a great start to the year. Our thoughts and prayers, as I said, go out to you, and here's to an improvement for the rest of the year, and stay safe, and we're thinking of you. Moving right along, today I'm tasting a wine from down here in the McLaren Vale region, and it's a Grenache Mourvèdre Shiraz, or Mourvèdre Grenache Shiraz blend, actually, if you put the order of the varieties. But Grenache, I suppose, was a poor cousin to a number of varieties in a number of regions around South Australia for many, many decades. And in the last 15 years or so, the tide has turned. So it was made into a lot of it was used for fortified wines, but in the last 15 years or so, it's really come to the fore. And there's a lot of straight varietal Grenaches and Grenache blends that have been made, and we are reaping the rewards as winemakers, but also as you guys as consumers. That the wonderful growers who weathered the storm through things like the vine pool scheme in the 1980s, and we are now benefiting from the wonderful resource of these aged vineyards that we have down here. Many of them are over 100 years old, and they're making extraordinary wines. This particular wine is from a brand called Grant Nash, and if you say it fast enough, Grant Nash, it sort of sounds like Grenache, and that's actually how the name came about. I read that it's really came about of a Siri autocorrect. So obviously Grant Nash, Grenache, it obviously makes sense. But Bryn and Sophie Richards are behind this label. Bryn has worked around the world and in McLaren for a number of years. He was the winemaker at a couple of very, very well-known wineries in the district, but most recently he's gone from that sort of bigger picture stuff down to making some wines for himself in the Grant Nash brand. This is the Mourvèdre Grenache Shiraz blend, and it's got 46% Mourvèdre or Mataro, which if you're in the Barossa or the rest of the world, but obviously down McLaren Vale we typically call it Mourvèdre. 35% Grenache and 19% Shiraz. It's called the dinner wine, as opposed to its sibling in the portfolio, which is a Grenache dominant wine, which is probably a little bit lighter and fresher and spicier, which is also known as the lunch wine. So Grenache has got a very, very versatile variety, and utilising the Grenache and the Mourvèdre and the Shiraz as well, really can put a different footprint and flavour profile on each of the wines. The Mourvèdre is from up in Blewett Springs, so sort of the northeastern part of McLaren Vale, up in a bit more altitude, and a lovely so sandier soils typically up there, typically dry grown. And then the Grenache component is from an old vine vineyard down in McLaren Flat, which was planted in 1941. So lovely, as I said, those lovely resources that we are still have around, thankfully, from the very, very conscientious growers who persisted. And a bit of Shiraz from Tatachilla, which was near the old winery, just out to the western side of McLaren Vale there, where we used to be. Lovely dark chocolate soils over limestone typically through there, and obviously very moderating sea breeze a bit close to the ocean. Open top, all hand picked, open top fermentation, hand plunged, and then matured in older French puncheons, so 500 litre bottle. So without further ado, let's give it a go. Lovely striking label. Obviously Grenache, a Mourvèdre typically has that sort of nice structure to it, often has a meaty notes to it. Grenache often is that sort of lovely lifted fruit down here, lovely spice and floral notes often, and then the Shiraz just comes in at the end with some nice fleshiness and bit of density, and fills in the potholes as such, as what I can sort of say. But look at that magnificent colour, really deep black core with sort of a deep red rim. And you can see it there, there's all straight away, there's some, for me, it's some grilled meats, there's some violets, there's some spice, some red fruits. There's that fleshy dark fruit spectrum that you get from the Shiraz, and a little bit of chocolate in the background, but all very deep and inviting. And similar on the palate. A little bit livelier on the palate. On the nose it's sort of more darker and broodier, and on the palate it's quite lively, a bit more lively in red fruit spectrum, but really quite spicy and fine tannins, really playful, but nice little subtle firmness from those fine tannins as well. So I can see why they're probably saying this is the dinner wine. It's just now that palate, it's a little bit firmer and richer, and it sort of matches that sort of richer, fuller nose that it has. But overall, really attractive, spicy, good fruit, lovely subtle ripeness, but a lovely softness to it as well at the same time. So there we go. I'm really enjoying that. Well done, Bryn. The Grant Nash or Grenache, their dinner wine, the Mourvèdre Grenache Shiraz. Thanks for listening, and take care. We'll speak to you soon. Cheers.